Thank you, Jimmy. For those of you wondering who the young man on top was sitting next to me, I have no clue. He's a wrestling fan. He sat next to me, and that's good enough for me. You guys, thank you. So proud of my daughter. Not just for what a tremendous girl she's had and daughter. I think she knows by now one of my favorite stories is that when she was 19 years old and SummerSlam was being held in Los Angeles, I arranged for her best friend to fly in to go to Disneyland with us for like 3 days. And after 2 days, I realized that they weren't really off on their own all that much. Maybe 30 minutes a day. And so I sat her down and said, "No, there was your best friend. You don't have to spend time with your dad and your brothers." And she mulled it over about a second and went, "I really like hanging out with your dad." At 19. I know. And the reason I'm particularly proud of her today is I gave her a text message that said, "No, I don't have a sports coat. I've been on the road for like 100 out of the last 104 days, right? And I don't regularly travel with a sports coat." So she purchased a sports coat, a shirt, and a tie, and mistakenly pulled off the tag, not understanding that I intended to return all of it tomorrow. My glasses here. Are they on the table? They're on the table? Oh, they're on my shirt? $34.99. I'm a little nervous because I want to give a good speech. I want to recognize people here. I don't want to go on forever. But it's a little bit difficult. This is like a lifetime achievement award. And I was up here 12 or 13 years ago, and I was given an award, not the Mazurki Award, but something pretty prestigious. And I found out that 29 out of 30 members of the CAC board had voted for me, which drove me crazy because I couldn't figure out who did not vote for me. To this day, I think it's Nick Bachnickle. I could have gone in unanimously. But one of the things I want to talk about is the little breaks and how they add up. And I'm convinced it's almost like a ball peen hammer to a windshield. That you keep tapping away, you're not sure which blow it is, and while the big break may get the recognition. For me, the big breaks were coming in 1991 to wrestle Sting in WCW, coming into WWE right off the bat, wrestling The Undertaker in 96, and then I guess if you call it a break, the cell match with The Undertaker in 1998. Those were the big breaks, but the smaller breaks are just as important. Dominic DeNucci was the man who trained me, and we have our friends up here from the Montreal area. They meet Dominic. I knew very little about professional wrestling. I thought I was, as they say, smart to the business. So when I tied up with my first lesson with Dominic, he said he wanted me to show him a forearm. And I was so excited because I watched hundreds of hours of wrestling footage, and I knew exactly what to do. So I brought up my right arm high into the Brooklyn, New York area where that independent show was being held because I was on the ring crew. I got the ring set up before the fans came in on my own for $25. I got to be trained, which was code word for my body stretched in ways I didn't know it could be stretched, and taught instant respect for the wrestling business. I brought my hand high up into the Brooklyn air, and I brought it down on Dominic's torso while making little to no actual contact with his pectoralis area. And he looked at me and goes, "You think that's a rest?" And I wondered if that was a trick question. And then he brought his hand high into the Brooklyn air. But when he brought it down, he didn't make little to no contact with the Foley pectoralis. He made complete 100% unadulterated contact with my pectoralis, and then proceeded to do it over and over again while narrating what he did by saying, "You want to rest? Do you want to rest? And my body went sliding down from the third turnbuckle to the second turnbuckle to the first turnbuckle, so I was sitting on the mat. And he looked at me and goes, that, my boy, is a rest. And I thought to myself, I'm in a world of trouble here. But I persisted, and I stuck in there, and I never complained. And one day I remember, it was a big day in my career because he was going to teach me the back body drop. It's similar to the story that Bob Orton's sister told about him doing the Hindu squats. They would do it in training and wondering if they would have a chance to wrestle. And so I finally had a chance to do some wrestling moves, and Dominic was going to teach me the back body drop. Now the back body drop, you don't see it too often today. When I was breaking it in the mid-1980s, it was the hallmark of every babyface or good guy's comeback. Now you really couldn't have a comeback unless you do a back body drop. And if you were a heel, no matter how young and experienced you were, and you could do a Harley race style backdrop, you could begin to get booked because you could make other people look better. Now the only problem about back body drops is the only way to learn to take good ones is to take an awful lot of bad ones. Each and every one of which will knock the wind out of you. And I took a lot of them in that one day. And then he called me inside of the dressing room. I'd known him about 3 months at that time. He wasn't a backpacker. He wasn't big on compliments. So when he gave me the first one, it really meant a lot. He looked at me and he said, Mickey, every time I see you, I beat the shit out of you. And I nodded my head and acknowledged that was true. And he said, and you never complain. Tonight, I give you 25 back drop. And I think, I'm not picking on our first generation immigrants, but they tend to have trouble with the singulars and plurals. And I offer up as evidence, Pat Patterson was in the United States for over 50 years, would say things like, I tell you, this crowd is going to go banana. Just one. Really? Oh, absolutely not. One nut. So Dominic looks at me and goes, every time I see you, I beat the shit out of you. I give you 25 back drop. You never complain. Here comes, you ready for the compliments, the big one. He goes, Mickey, you've got a ball. Just one. You're wondering how big this thing is, right? Pass grapefruit volleyball size. And every time a star would come in, we usually had one named wrestler on the event shows, he would introduce, this is Troy. He went on to be Shane Douglas. This is a Dave. This is Mickey. He's a little green, but he's got a ball. And that was my first gimmick. But I learned a lot about the type of person I wanted to be if I was lucky enough to be a success in wrestling, because of Dominic. I had $125 to my name the first time after he gave me the compliment of the ball, he told me he had some boys he was training outside of Pittsburgh. And I maintain to this day that if the GPS had been invented back then, or if I even had a random alley road atlas, I wouldn't be here in front of you, because Pittsburgh to Cortland, New York is 350 miles. Back in the day of 55-mile-per-hour speed limits, that was a hike. And I had no money. I had enough money for one trip. I had heard somewhere that every lesson was $100. So at the end of that first weekend in Pittsburgh, Dominic goes, how much do you think you should pay? So I figured, I'm going to try to lowball out of necessity. I said, $50? And he shook his head, and my heart kind of sank down to my stomach. He said, that's too much. You pay me 25. And I didn't have boots. He goes, I've got a pair of boots. You give me 25. So I'm going to donate those boots temporarily to the new Wrestling Hall of Fame that's in the Albany Arena. They're worth a lot more than $25 these days. And at one point, I think after about a year, he goes, Mickey, you've been coming here over a year. From now on, you don't pay. And that's the type of trainer I had, and that's the type of person that I thought I wanted to be. I learned a lot when I was going through the territories. This Texas fancy cowboy hat, he's got the button-down shirt. I know he didn't have 18 band-aids on his head, but in my dreams he did, right? It was these dusty roads, and he just stood there in silence. He listened to 2 promos, he walked up to me, put his hand on my shoulder, looked at me and said, I think we're going to keep you around here for a little while. And that 6-week gig turned into a 3-year run, where not only did I sit under the learning tree, but I did it in the front seat of a Cadillac, because WCW only allowed wrestlers to travel 3 at a time and drive full-size cars, with one exception. I got a Cadillac because I was driving Abdullah the Butcher. And we learned so much. You want to know what type of man he is deep down? I'm going to tell you what type of man he is deep down. It's the type of man who once held a farted for 300 miles. So I was talking to my wife who was traveling 300 miles. So, love you, Abby. And I remember a documentary show. And my son Mickey, who's 24 now, since a couple of years ago, he was so fascinated with Abdullah the Butcher. And then when I told him I used to be his tag team partner, you could see like respect growing. And then I went back and I showed him the things, and I forgot that we used to scare people legitimately. Like I still maintain, I don't mean this to become the Abdullah the Butcher hour, but I love today's current product. I do. I really love it. I think by and large, better athletes, better matches. My pet peeves with the current product are twofold. One, I think fans have come to believe there's only one way to have a great match, and the wrestlers kind of adhere to that. And number 2, where have all the monster wrestlers gone? No sentence ends well. It begins with the words, "Don't take this the wrong way, but." He said, "Did you always envision yourself like this? Because Mankind was a dark character." I laughed. I go, "No, actually, Shawn, I wanted to be you." He looked at me kind of quizzically. I said, "No, I don't mean I want to be Shawn Michaels, but I want to be the guy that the women loved and the men wanted to be like." And I told him about this character I created named Dude Love. Bruce Pritchard happened to be overhearing that conversation. He went to Mr. McMahon the next day and he said, "Mick Foley has a much more interesting backstory than you realize, and he's got the tape to prove it." Right place, right time, small little break. Joel Goodhart over there put me together with Eddie Gilbert in just a basic match, right? And we didn't click. We put us together in a Falls Count Anywhere. It was the first time I remember fans just, "Oh, we've had these great matches." Like, no, I haven't. I've had a few great moments. Never had a great match. I don't even know what that feels like. It was a Joel Goodhart show where I learned what it felt like to have a great match. Bob Orton's gone, but he really was my tag team partner. And Herb Abrams, UWF. You remember Herb Abrams, UWF, right? And, and you might, one of the greatest lines I've ever heard is from B. Brian Blair, when he said that Herb Abrams died doing what he loved, hookers and cocaine. And he had a tendency to dismiss anything happening at Herb's UWF because he was Herb, and he was kind of, he was a strange little guy, I mean, I remember Brian, I had a match with Jimmy Snuka, who was my hero, right? I mean, another guy I wouldn't be here without. And Herb gave me the duty of telling my idol that he's going to put me over in the match. And I see Jimmy in the casino, and I try to break the news to him, and Jimmy responds with some things I wasn't quite sure I understood. I looked at him and I said, "Double count out?" And he said, "Beautiful, brother." It's a double count out in a lumberjack match. That's not supposed to happen. And then I had to recruit my own lumberjacks, and we had the sorriest group of people. We had Little Tokyo come out, right? We had 3 women with Brian Blair. Brian doesn't know the finish of the match, so when Jimmy and I start rolling up into the stands, he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, and I'm yelling, right? There's 180 people in the 22,000 seat venue. That's not an exaggeration. I said, "It's a double count out." And I hear Brian go, "But it's a lumberjack match." I yell, "It's a Herb Abrams show. We can do whatever we want." But the key to my time at UWF was it was there that I had like a light switch felt like to no longer feel foolish in front of a TV crew. It was easier to get pumped up and motivated in front of a live crowd, but to do it in front of people who literally filmed thousands of these things and can't wait to get out of there and escape into your own world and feel like what you have to say is important enough for people to listen, that happened in Herb Abrams' UWF. A culture like Japan where guys still chop each other as hard as they can and pretend they're not chopping each other, which seems to be the antithesis of what we're supposed to be doing. But it's a macho culture. But Terry Funk realized not every one of them was as macho as they would like to think they were. Just like I realized years later, not everybody watching WWE TV was as cool and hip as we were marketing them to be. Terry realized there was something out there for someone willing to wear their heart on their sleeve and show emotion. And he's doing this one promo, and he's got the blood commingling with the sweat, the tears, and that was freaking beautiful. He just said one word over and over, forever. Forever, when you thought he couldn't say forever again, he'd say it one more time. How can I prove he was that good? Because I was given a backstage tour at Universal Studios in California in 2000, and I'm driving by on a golf cart, and I hear a voice going, forever, 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 and I turned around, and it was Eddie Murphy. Terry Funk promos puts Terry at number one on my list. He kept saying, and as we got closer to each other, the 150 fans in their winter coats, they all parted so that we could meet, and we pulled each other up, and we sank in a hug. And I remember, it's, you know, in this day and age, you can't generalize based on people, ethnicity, skin color, unless it's possible, right? The Japanese fans do tend to respond in unison. And when they saw me and Terry hugging, they all at once went, ooh. And then they gave us the golf clap, Japanese version of the standing ovation. And I remember I was just holding on to Terry and I was thinking to myself, how is this possible? I didn't see him. I didn't speak to him. And yet this is the greatest story I've ever told in a wrestling ring, and I'll never tell another one quite like it. Until I heard Terry say three more words. Two words at first. Pile drive me. And I said, what? He said, pile drive me, Cactus. And I knew my story was going to be ruined because Terry Funk, my mentor and my idol. So I kicked Terry in the stomach, gave a little bit of room, lifted him upside down, and drove him head first into that cold gymnasium floor. It was 150 Japanese fans who were all happy as one. And I got angry in unison and went, and to this day, that's the match I'm proud of. It's not my favorite match, it's not my best match, but it's the one I look back on and I say, you want to know what my career stood for? Take a look at this. This is for $350. That's what I made that day. Got $0 on royalties. Wouldn't do it over again differently if I had the chance. And then there's a documentary coming out by A24 about this bizarre subculture, Japanese wrestling. I was having a great time. And I told the story about that night, but I told it something a little bit differently. I talked about how Terry would never ride with the other wrestlers until we got to the first truck stop. He would ride with fans. He didn't want the fans to see him getting in the same bus as the person he just wrestled with. When he got on that bus, like the Japanese didn't know like what was going to go down. They thought maybe this thing was going to continue. And when he got on instead, it was like another one of those big hugs. And the darndest thing happened when I was talking on that documentary. I broke down in tears. Not like fighting back tears, but like tears, like sobbing tears. And I realized that I still had some emotional stuff in the basement that I hadn't worked out when it came to Terry. And by telling that story, it brings him back to life every night to me. He's one of those guys who's a giver in a world of takers, and it convinced me to be a giver myself. Rob, last time I saw you, I asked if you'd read the article I wrote about Sabu, because I said, look, I guys give 150 words, and that covers that these days. that covers for Karen. And I realized a couple weeks ago by, and this guy played such a role. We talked about why CAC is so valuable and so important. My dad was a big fan of the verse, "There but for the grace of God go I." In so many ways, things could have turned out so much differently for me. When I had a chance to return after 4 years not wrestling, I teamed up with Dwayne Johnson at WrestleMania to take on Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Batista. I just thought I came up a little bit short. I didn't think I'd tried my best. I didn't think I'd taken my swing. I'm a big believer in the idea that you can't hit towering home runs unless you're willing to strike out a lot. But his brother, I've struck out a lot in my career, and every once in a while you hit a towering home run. I'm talking figuratively here, and there's just nothing like it. But the reason you can appreciate it is because you struck out so many times in the quest of hitting that home run. Someone with so much vim and vigor who ain't seen on their TV. And I was proud of the fact that, as my daughter alluded to, I did have the guts, the pride, and the fortitude to stop those EMTs and say, "Want to take a photo of me in front of my car?" You gotta get that photo out there. And that's when I really started thinking about CAC. Brian had called me the year before, and obviously I'm thrilled to get this award. And I was already a lifetime member of CAC, but it didn't dawn on me just how important their body of work is until I had that life-threatening experience, and I thought it extended to what I did in the ring. There were a lot of well-meaning old-timers who were warning me about the way I'd be feeling when I got to be about my age right now, and a lot of them had me in a wheelchair about 20 to 30 years ago, and I'm so lucky to still be standing, doing fairly well, all things considered, but I know some of my associates are not. And that's why I think it's so important that we have an organization like this. Ryan, I'm so gratified. Every time, yeah, I appreciate that. I would go out on the road every couple of years with a collection of stories, and I would auction the shirts off my back for really well-meaning organizations. And it never hit me until I had that accident that CAC should be the one. This tour, I hope, changed it from town to town. Even though that's fine. But I just thought, here's something we can all agree upon. And it's something that, believe it or not, most of us in the rest of the community are not aware of. So I'm here, hopefully. I don't have the skills that Brian has to organize and to make things happen. We all play a role in life, and I think we all have to play a role in CAC. My role is to get the word out. Trying to raise the money, but really the money I'm raising on the road with these shirt auctions is hopefully a drop in the hat compared to what could happen if the right people hear about this organization, realize they spent dozens of years, the better part of a lifetime, loving and appreciating what we do without even considering that there's an opportunity to give back. So that's the role I'm playing here. I've got a final story I'd like to sum up, and I think it says something important. But for those of you who have a bingo card out here, I'm not sure you have this on the bingo card. But in case you're wondering how Steve Austin would react if he were to land in Oz, I'm going to show you how that conversation might go by bringing up one of my oldest friends, Jason Sensation. Come on up here, Jason.
I like fries. What? I like poutine. What? I like chips.
What? If you had to pick one favorite junk food, what would it be?
Maybe ho-hos.
We have this thing on Oz, professional wrestling. Not sure if you're aware of it, but we love it. Just wondering if you're aware of it.
Really? One man love?
Well, there you have it. Oz and Texas are not that different at all. Sha-na-na, ho-ho-hos, and a couple of Monday brawls. That's how we play the day away in the merry old land of Oz. Sha-na-na, ho-ho-ho, couple of Monday brawls. That's how we play the day away in the merry old land of Oz. A wrestler one time seemed to big, I think one of the saddest things in life is the loss of potential. And Dwayne Johnson at one time seemed to have So I get in that accident on April 1st, and the doctor says to me, you're going to need 2 weeks of bed rest. And I was aware that's what he said. What I heard was, you'll be on a flight to Texas in 2 days, and you won't miss a single day of work. So my son Dewey flew out to Texas with me, so he could do the driving for a week. And I was in Belton, Texas, with his sign. And am I about to fall off this thing? Sorry. About 10 minutes are left of the signing, and this little kid walks up, and he announces himself as Finley. And he says, Mick, the next time you speak to The Rock, can you tell the final boss that Finley says he needs to straighten out his act? And I said, all right, I'm going to tell him. And I take out my phone, and purely as a way to get myself over by showing that I have The Rock's cell number, I talk to text the words, Rock, Mick Foley here, hope you're doing well. I'm with Finley, who's 8, and he says the final boss needs to straighten out his act. And I never expect to hear from Rock. I never expect to get a text message back, and I did not. What I did get was a 90-second video to this child, in which Dwayne did 3 amazing things. 1, he managed to stay in heel character while simultaneously being nice to Finley and saying he would entertain the thought of cleaning up just a little bit. But most impressively, he referred to himself as the final boss 19 times in a 90-second video. The important thing about the video is this. By the time it was delivered, Finley and his family were no longer there. The shop owner was thrilled, but obviously couldn't post it without the family's permission. They showed it to the family, and 2 days later, the shop owner asks how things are going. And the mother replies, he hasn't come down from this yet. We were visited by 3 TV stations yesterday. It didn't make national or international news, but it made Central Texas news. And you can Google Mick Foley Rock, Belton, Texas. And she said, he said it's the greatest moment of his life. And the reason I bring up this story is because it took 90 seconds of one man's time to create a memory that this child and his family and this community will never forget. So I know we're in a crazy business where I remember somebody saying that they had to describe to their friends what they were doing when they were taking a road trip to Philadelphia to go to one of Joel Goodhart's tri-state wrestling shows. And they replied they were going to see 2 60-year-old men stab each other with pencils. 50 at the time, probably, right? And the sheep were about 50. And it's a crazy business, but it brings joy to people around the globe. There was a time when people really frowned on the Attitude Era. I remember meeting with a young man who had physical and emotional challenges. And his mom said something that stuck with me forever. She said, this wrestling so many people think is bad sure has brought a lot of joy to my son. And that's always stayed with me. It's always stayed with me that we are in the business of creating joy. And a lot of you traveled a long way to be here. I thank you for supporting our unique form of entertainment. There's nothing else like it in the world, like pop culture, bar and so many people have learned so much about the way to promote events, whether it's UFC taking on a certain type of angle aspect, or even the low angle shot at one of the Democratic or Republican conventions. They're doing the low angle rival shots, like that's the raw shot. Like they borrow from us so much reality TV and things like that, but there'll never be anything quite like professional wrestling. And I think with due respect to American baseball, American football, soccer, and cricket, wrestling's the only thing in the world that will flourish anywhere it's given attention. Am I right? Professional wrestling.
CEO, Pete Brian Blair, and all members of the CAC board. If you'd like to come up as well, please do. Herb, everybody, Darla, wherever you are.
Foley started the program, as we briefly mentioned, to shirt off his back. Mick Foley started sending checks, 500 here, 300 there, 600 there, 700 there. Mick Foley has given single-handedly to this club over $25,000. Mick Foley's a lifetime member of this club, and Mick, it's my honor, it's the board's honor. We all unanimously voted on this. We created something because we wanted you to live in perpetuity. Rich, could you grab that, please? Okay, so. This weighs 7 pounds, I think, but Nick's I'm sure he's going to hit somebody over the head with it. This is called the Mick Foley Philanthropy Award, and we will give this out every year so Mick will live at the CAC in perpetuity. We will have the Mick Foley Philanthropy